Hey, good evening. Thanks for joining us here on Sunday evening for our Old Testament studies. We're on Palm Sunday, and next week on Easter we'll do the finale of Ecclesiastes, and then the following week we'll find a new Old Testament book to study. If you want to send me a preference, just do so, and I will consider it. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, so maybe you can help me. Chapter 11 is where we got to. Solomon's still in his musings and philosophy, and he's studying everything under the sun. Next week he'll finally turn his thoughts more above the sun. But chapter 11, he's still been sitting there and looking around, and here's what he's come up with as he's studied over life. And some of it's good advice, and some of it's just, it's just under the sun advice. But this is pretty good. He says, most people are aware of this verse. It says, cast your bread upon the waters, for it'll find you after many days. That's just a principle we find throughout the Bible, that be generous because you'll reap what you sow. Give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be on the earth. Be generous with a lot of people, you'll reap what you sow. Even the Lord Jesus said to use your money to make friends with. And maybe this is an example in verse 3. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. Well, empty yourselves for other people, he's saying, I guess. Because, now here's where he gets it wrong, see. If the tree fall toward the south or toward the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it'll be. Once you fall, that's the end of it. See, that's the under the sun philosophy. He that observes the wind shall not sow, and he that regards the clouds will not reap. I guess maybe that is be wise. That'd be my advice to you. Be wise of how you're being generous too, because be very discerning about it. Because you can, in the name of generosity, just be enabling. Don't give a drink to a drunk, and don't buy drugs for drug heads. And that's just, you're hurting them, not helping them. So be very wise and discerning how you're being generous. Verse 5, as thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that's with child. Now, Solomon, one of the wisest men in the world, remember, he says, there's some things I don't understand. How that baby's formed in the womb and all that. But he says, even so, thou knowest not the works of God who makes all. Solomon's right here. He says, there's some things you just can't understand, but chalk it up to God. In the morning sow your seed, and in the evening withhold not your hand. Sow plenty of seed. Sow it in the morning, go back and sow it in the evening. For you don't know what shall prosper. You don't know which is going to be the blessing. Either this or that, whether they both will be alike good. So just be generous as much as you can. That's Solomon's wise advice. Verse 7, he says, truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. Boy, there's some mornings you go out and you just look at the beautiful sky and the sun, and it just makes you feel good to be alive, he's saying. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they'll be many. All that comes is vanity. Solomon looks back and says, life's made up with good days and bad days, and it's just all vanity. And because maybe he's right if this world's all there is. But see, we know something else. We know that this world is just a flash in the pan of eternity. Rejoice, O young man. Now Solomon's going to begin right here, sort of introducing us to chapter 12, which is the best chapter in the finale. And he's talking about talking to the young people. He's talking to the old people too that can identify, but his advice is to the young people here. And here he says, verse 9, rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer thee in the days of your youth. And walk in the ways of your heart. Now, see, I'd say, looking in the light of what Jesus said, now he's jumped the track here. And I hear people today say this, just follow your heart, just follow your heart. That's some of the dumbest advice that's ever been. Because Jesus said, the heart is deceitful above all things. The only time you ought to follow your heart is when God's leading your heart. But the rest of the time, you better look and make your decisions based on what thus saith the Lord, not what I feel like. So Solomon's telling the young folks here, says, walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Don't just do what's right in the sight of your own eyes. Do what's right in the sight of God's eyes. Don't just follow your heart unless God's drawing your heart and you know it's God. Then He's leading you to do something. And the umbrella above all that, He said, remember that one of these days God's going to be your judge. Verse 10, therefore, remove sorrow or sadness from your heart. And here's good advice. One of the best ways to do that is put away evil from your flesh. Avoid sin. It'll cause you to avoid a whole lot of heartache in life. Bring it on yourself, and you bring it on everybody else around you too. But Solomon's still looking under the sun here, and he says, for childhood and youth are vanity, just futility, because you're going to grow old and you're going to die, and where the tree falls is going to remain. That's the life of under the sun. But we got to get our eyes above the sun and remember the S-O-N too, that there's another world that's a lot better than this one. And when this old tree falls down, that ain't really the end. See you next week.